Who do you think you are? That was the question I invited you to ask yourself, to look in the mirror and ask the question, who do you think you are? So I ask you this morning, who do you think you are? You can just shout it out to me, or if you're online, you can type it in. I give you permission to speak. Yes. Love. Peace. Joy. Compassion. Humor. Say again, Bonnie. Precious child of God. Love in action. I love that. Power. One power. All right. Well, that's pretty amazing. I'm hanging out with some pretty amazing people, I have to say, and I'm grateful for it. As we are in the beginnings of the year 2025, I remember growing up and there was a song, in the year, and I'm like, we're here. That just seemed like, eons away, and we're here. I don't know what 2535 will look like, but it's better than what they predicted. That's what I'm going to say in that song. But we're exploring the realm of metaphysics, specifically asking those big questions. What is the nature of God? What is the nature of creation? What is the nature of humankind? And what's the nature of our relationship with that which we call God? For eons, humans have been asking these same questions, and their answers, their understanding varied depending upon the metaphysical window that they were looking through. Sometimes it was clouded and difficult to see. Other times they may have been looking more at the window than looking through the window. And from their metaphysical perspective, every culture and every religion has developed a creation story, because that was like, how did we get here? Those who were brought up in traditional Christianity were likely taught that God is this superhuman, perfected image of man, including being an emotional being, just like humans are. And this God, at least my understanding of it was, demands our praise, needs it, wants our obedience, and because of our sinful nature, can only be reconciled with its creation through the sacrifice of the Son that he called Jesus. With the advent of scientific revolution over the last certainly 200 years, and even more so I think in the last 50, 60, 70 years, it's moving at such an accelerated pace right now, that narrative is evolving also. In the US, 68% of people identify as Christians, although only 45% actually are affiliated with any kind of Christian community. And those numbers drop off significantly when you get to the millennials and younger. And even more dramatic than this, when I was doing a little more research, only 6% of that 68% hold a biblical worldview. This worldview that had been part and the foundation of that traditional Christianity. So it tells you why people aren't as engaged, because they just don't buy. There's too much knowledge now and awareness now of how we likely have changed and evolved over time, that old story just doesn't hold water anymore for them. Just in the last century, Einstein discovered that all matter, all of creation is energy vibrating at different levels. Everything that we have access to from our human perspective is just simply energy, including us. This is energy. Everything we can see and touch is energy. Freud also has had a huge impact at least in the US, and I'm typically speaking from the US because that's the culture that we live in. in his exploration of the human psyche. And the avalanche of studies that have followed have brought new insights into how the mind and emotions shape our human nature, and is ultimately reshaping our creation story. It certainly reshaped the way our co-founders, Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, understood these big questions. Them and other early New Thought pioneers who embarked upon this study in light of this new scientific information that we had began to see things differently. The biblical stories became metaphysical reflections of the evolution of the soul, the evolution of humankind. It's like you can see it. It's like look at it from the large perspective, and you can see how much we have evolved through the period of time that the Bible was written. And they began to see that Jesus came to teach us, to guide us of how to live into our full God potential. That was the purpose of Jesus coming onto earth. And one of the most transformative understandings that arose out of New Thought is what we call the law of mind action, or our co-creative power. And the law of mind action is a metaphysical idea that states that thoughts and feelings produce similar outcomes. And it's often expressed as thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. I know those of you who have been around Unity for a while have heard that one before. In his book, Practical Metaphysics, the Reverend Eric Butterworth takes it a step further, suggesting that incidents or experiences that we have do not cause our thoughts and feelings, that we are always in choice. Now, thoughts and feelings for the average person is a reflex process. When we like what's happening in our surroundings, we feel happy or inspired. And when we don't like what's happening, especially if it feels like it will change or impact my life, we start to feel fearful or anxious or worried. This is the perspective that life happens to me. I'm just here doing my bit, just walking my path, and all this stuff comes in and causes me to think and feel and ultimately act in the way that I do. What happens in your mind is a result of your attitudes, your feelings, and your habit patterns. Probably more so than anything else, those habit patterns. And you have the power to change your attitudes, your feelings, and your habit patterns. Your mind and your heart is your domain. And the first step in the process that he calls the art of thinking is to know that no matter what is taking place around you or even to you, you always have a choice in how you think and feel about it. Yet it's not easy to break these habitual habit patterns that we have in our life. We think they're real, so we don't even see them as a habit. We just see it as the way life is. So to begin to interrupt that and then be awake enough to make another choice is a practice that takes a lot of time to develop. To change from being a reactive thinker to a creative thinker takes a lot of will and commitment because we've been thinking in this other way for so long. Most of us were not brought up with this knowledge from the time we were young and have that capacity, have been practicing it for a long time. The law of mind action invites us into a new paradigm that beyond life happening to me, life happens by me, by my ability to choose. And foundational to this process is to understand this, and I want you to hear this, so pay attention. You are not what you think. you think, or you're thinking what you think. Think about that. You're not what you think. That doesn't define who you are. You are thinking what you think. You may have a habit of thinking that you're unworthy or that you're a failure or that you live in scarcity, but you're not those things. You are a person who has those thoughts. You are a divine child of God who has those thoughts, and you can change those thoughts. The I that thinks, because there is an I in there that's beyond our thinking, that's beyond our feeling, that's beyond our beliefs, that's beyond our life experiences, that is the one who can direct, if we allow it, all of those areas of our life. The I that thinks has the capacity to think what it wants to think and to feel what it wants to feel. But it takes a lot of practice to begin to recognize, to be aware and awake enough to even know, oh, usually we don't see it till afterwards. It's like as soon as we get done having some kind of interaction, whether it's with ourselves or other people, we go, boy, because of what I was thinking and feeling, I did not make the choice that I would have liked to make and how I engaged in that interaction. So as we take the time to move into meditation, we're going to take a little time to practice. Just a few minutes of practice during our time together. So I'd invite you to just get comfortable where you are. If you're holding on to something, you can just set it aside. It's easier sometimes to bring our attention inward when we can close our eyes, or we can just shift our attention to some point in the room so that we're not receiving so much external information through our senses, and we can fully be aware and awake to this internal state of being. As you just take a deep breath with me and then let that breath go. And do another deep breath and release it. And with one more deep breath, just feel and know the I that you are within this human construct that you experience life through. And in this moment, just observe what you're thinking. You're not directing it. Just see if you can notice the thoughts as they drift by in your mind. And then see if you can shift down into your heart space, into the brain of the heart. And see if you can notice what you're feeling in this moment. Just notice. Now let your attention drift down further to the floor of your pelvic bone, to the lower part of your stomach, that intuitive spiritual womb, that place that we are connected and guided by the divine. And just notice any thoughts or feelings that arise from that place that holds the highest vision of you, that knows the truth of who you are. And take a moment, and to each part of this being, affirm again who you think you are. I am And whatever name shows up for that, speak that from your place of spiritual divine connection. And then let it rise up into your heart space and speak that to the brain of your heart. I am. And let it rise up into your mind. And speak and affirm that to all of the thoughts that might be rambling through there. Take another deep breath. And from this collective awareness of your I amness, let it move out, the vibration of that, into every part of your physical being, so that every cell can declare, I am. I am light. I am love. I am a divine child of God. I am peace. I am wholeness. And then see it flooding this room. Our collective knowing as a community that we are love and light and peace and joy. And then even imagining it moving out beyond this room, down into our children's wings, so that every child in there vibrates with that energy, with that knowingness, with that awareness and awakeness. And out into our community at large. And as that ripple moves faster, it is able to encompass our entire world. And we just simply rest in this space of gratitude. Gratitude for this knowing, gratitude for this moment. For this moment can become the next moment and the next moment and the next moment. And as you become aware once again of the sounds in the room and the chair supporting you and the body that allows you to have the privilege of being that channel of love. Whenever you're ready, you can bring your attention back and open your eyes. So the latest advances of brain science are discovering why it's so challenging to shift from this reactive to this responsive thinking and feeling, especially when we're in that space of fear and its many expressions, whether that's anger or worry or depression or the whole gamut of those things. When we're in that state, when we're in fear at any level, our prefrontal cortex shuts down. And the brain stem, which holds the reptilian brain, the amygdala, takes over. And this is in hundreds of thousands of years, this was how we survived and evolved. Because when there was physical danger, this thinking part of us don't need it right now. We need all of our focus on being able to activate the energy. I mean, it floods cortisol into our system. It shuts down the organs, the digestive, all unnecessary in the moment functions, and it gets you ready to either fight or flee, or sometimes we simply freeze in the moment. And so it's not easy to direct our thinking. When I say we have a choice, it's true we have a choice, but when the prefrontal, that reasoning, that awakened part of us that can see beyond and experience beyond, when that's not activated, we aren't in choice in that moment. It's that's the place where choice happens. It doesn't happen in the part of us that's simply worried about our survival. So we have to recognize that that energy of fear and all of its shades that we experience, when we're in that place, we're going to be reactive. So part of our challenge is first of all noticing when that shows up in our life. And the truth is that for most of us, we are not very often in physical fear. I mean, occasionally, yes, you're out on the road and somebody cuts you off and you have to, it's like, it's an important thing. It focuses you into that moment. It puts everything, that you need to do to control this physical environment to keep you safe right at the ready. But most of the time, that's not when fear shows up for us. Fear shows up in everyday things when we're not physically in danger, and yet the mind can't tell the difference. The mind can't tell the difference between I'm in fear because I think they're about to come in and fire me versus I'm in fear because they're about to come in and beat the crap out of me. To the mind, it's the same thing. So part of what our spiritual practice is to notice when we're in fear and bring us back. Sometimes deep breaths is the best way we can do that. But another way that have been a mainstay in unity practice is something called affirmations and denials. And I know that's another thing that probably a lot of you had been exposed to before. These days, a lot of people call it positive thinking, but it's been around for 100 years that when we are awake enough to know that we're in fear, we can then redirect our thinking nature and our feeling nature to some other way of engaging with it. So typically it starts with the denial. So you want to let go of whatever has caused the fear, and then to affirm something positive. So I might say something like, this person or this event has no power over me. Notice it's not denying that it's going on. We're not saying, everybody's great, but we're saying it does not have the power over me, and then to affirm I am safe, divine love protects me. So it's negating what the physical mind and ego might have been believing in that moment, and then reaffirming who it is that we are. In our leadership group, in this book Emergence that we're studying, he offers a slightly different version of affirmations, and it is called 3D affirmations. So you not only say, I am, this has no power, I am, but you also then say you are, and directing it yourself, and then you do it so in the second person and then in the third person, Linda is. And sometimes you can do this in the mirror practicing it. It might feel a little weird at first, but you might say, I am a divine child of God. And then looking, you are a divine child of God. Linda is a divine child of God. Just a different way to play with them and see if that helps make some of the shifts, both to your mental, your emotional states, to bring you back to that place where you now can think about and feel about whatever the event is from a place that has the capacity to see beyond just those emotions of fear. We can also affirm our power to say no. This is another one. The author writes, it's as simple as watching TV and deciding that you don't like the program. You don't have to just sit and watch it. You can change the channel. You can simply turn it off. We each will have negative thoughts, probably daily, maybe hourly, and we've established that it doesn't mean that you're negative or bad. It simply means those are the thoughts that you're having, and that you have the capacity to say no to them. And use that power to say no, and then the affirmation to follow it up. Robert Frost shared this when asked how he remains so positive and optimistic. He says, it seems to me the important thing for creative and productive living is a person's capacity to mold and shape things. And he goes on to say that as I prepare to face each day, I do two things before anything else. He said, the first thing I do is make up my bed, and the second thing I do is make up my mind. So I invite you to try that out this week. Maybe it won't be making your bed or as you're brushing your teeth or as you're taking a shower. Focus on getting whatever those wrinkles are that you might have woken up to, thoughts that are there. Imagine that you're smoothing them out, you're cleansing them. And then bring in to your mind and into your feeling nature the awareness that you live in the allness of divine mind. It's accessible to you, and all things are possible. Or whatever affirmation you might want to use to work on shifting those habitual thoughts and patterns. In the eternal reality, there is only one presence and one power, and it's the power of God's love in you and in me. Well, it is our opportunity now to share of our financial good with this spiritual community, and we're grateful for all the ways in which that good flows in and through and as us. It's all in divine order and hands, and we know that too. Sometimes we put a little form around it, and then we just have to let go and know it's all going to unflow exactly how it should. So as we take what we're offering today into our hands and into our hearts, the greatest gift that we can offer, what we are giving to this community, is to do so with love, with gratitude, with joy, and from that place that there is enough, and that you are just part of that divine flow of giving and receiving. So with that in your heart and in your mind, let's join together and bless it. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Father, Mother God.
So let's go ahead and stand up together, join hands, and let's do our peace song.
So as we go into this day, into this week, affirming and denying those things that have no power of us, affirming the truth of who we are, we go knowing our prayer for protection. We'll do it as call and response. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Together, wherever we are, God is, and all is well.